Hello to all of you lovely people out there. I'm going live for the first time and in a long time. And today I have a special guest and she's going to come in soon. But I wanted to tell you guys what my video is going to be about. It is all about how to instantly improve your writing. But it is not going to be your typical how to be a better writer video. It's going to deal with how to be a better writer and how to believe in yourself and what that takes to be a better writer. But while we wait for her, Antavia Mason, aka Penofthebeloved, is also a poet and is a writer, and she has two amazing books, one called For Wonder in the Wilderness, and the other one called An Armory of Love Poems. And these are two books that she just recently published over the span of 2 years. And they are on Amazon, and they're also on her website at penofthebeloved.com. And while we're waiting for her, we can go ahead and get started on the first way to instantly improve your writing. And the first way to instantly improve your writing is believing in yourself. And I started my YouTube channel, OCTAVIA Mason, which gives practical writing tips to help you become a better writer, resources to help you build a strong novel, and confidence to write your story. I started that YouTube channel and I started this Instagram and I started my website to give all those resources because I believe that I have a story to tell. I believe that I have books that have been given to me from God that is to share and to help you all become better people, to enlarge your imagination and to help you be more creative and believe in yourselves to also be writers. But if I don't have any belief in myself to be the writer that I have been called to be, if I don't think that I can do it, then all the reasons that I have to be a writer really don't matter if I don't believe in myself to be a writer. And one of the things that can seriously hinder you from being the writer that you're meant to be is doubt. It literally can come in and it can just hold you down from being the best writer you can be. And so no matter how many reasons you have to be a writer, if it's to become a published novelist and to be on the New York Times bestsellers list, and if it's to provide for your family with all the proceeds that come in from selling your book, it means nothing if you can't believe in yourself to be a writer. It means nothing if you allow doubt to come in and to hinder you and to shackle you down. And so really the key to this in believing yourself is really starting with one question, or one statement rather, is saying that I can do this. I can be a writer, and I can be more than just an average writer. I can be the best writer that I've been called to be. I don't have to just settle for being a writer who publishes a book. And, some people like it, some people buy it, but you can put in the effort, you can put in the work, and you can choose to say, I can do this. I can be a writer who sells tons of books, but not only that, I can be a writer who changes people's lives with my words, with my fictional characters, because that is possible. And you can believe in yourself to change the world with fictional characters, with the fictional book, because your story matters, just like I believe my stories matter when I write my books, when I wrote my poetry book, when I wrote my science fiction book. It matters, and yours can matter too if you believe in yourself and if you say, I can do this. So let's move on to the second way to instantly improve your writing. And for all of you who are just joining, this is a video about how to instantly improve your writing, but not the typical video of how to be a better writer, 3 simple ways. These are ways that are going to hit you at home, going to hit you in your heart, because it deals with the essence of becoming a better writer, of instantly improving your writing, which is believing in yourself and knowing that you're capable of writing great works without letting doubt hinder you. And so the second way to improve your writing is don't compare yourself to other authors. And this one is kind of a tricky thing. Comparison can be a tricky thing, especially with all of social media, all the things that we have, that we see on Instagram. I know, for example, you could be scrolling one day on Instagram and you can see this independent published author, and they just published their first book, and they have all these writers and all these readers, and they get all this attention and things like that. And you're just like, okay, congratulations, bravo, I support you, I'm there for you. But then, like, maybe a couple of days later, you're on your manuscript, and then you're writing, you're just like, I'm kind of struggling right now. I have no idea what to write. I don't know what I'm doing. And then you think on that other author who just published their book with all this attention and all these readers, and you say, well, maybe I should look at how they published their book. Maybe I should look at the genre that they wrote their book in. I mean, it worked for them. Why can't it work for me? You know? And I think that there is a trap that happens when you compare yourself is the it worked for them, so maybe it'll work for me trap. And that is something that no one, even if you're doing something other than writing, that's a trap that you don't ever want to be in, because the work that you've been called to do, the words that you've been called to write, the sentences, the paragraphs, everything that you've been called to put into your book shouldn't be what someone else has written. If it worked for them, it worked for them. But every writer's journey is different. Your work is yours alone, and another author's work is theirs alone. And so the wonderful idea that you've been given, the wonderful idea that you spent all night thinking of, the one that just popped into your head and you wrote down, that is an idea that is unique to you and special to you, and the one that's going to be what pushes you forward, the one that is, at the end of the day, when you finish that manuscript, when you publish that book and your readers are reading it, you're going to be more satisfied with that book than if you had looked at that author and copied their genre, knowing good and well that you didn't want to do a romantic suspense genre, but your heart is in science fiction fantasy. Don't do what someone else does simply because it got them where they are. Do what you do and be satisfied of the place that you are when you get there. You know what I'm saying? Be satisfied with what you've been given and where you'll end up with what you've been given. And my special guest is ready to come in. We're waiting and we're waiting.
Hey, Octavia.
She's coming.
Hello.
Hey, there she is.
Sorry about the hold up.
Oh, no, it's no problem at all. We just talked about the first and second way of instantly improving your writing. The first one, which is believing in yourself. Mm-hmm. And the second one is don't compare yourself to other authors. Again, if you're just not joining, this is Antavia Mason, aka Penofthebeloved. Again, she has 2 books, For Wandering in the Wilderness and An Army of Love Poems, which you can find on her website at penofthebeloved.com and on Amazon. But
yes,
if you buy it on her website, do they get a signed copy?
They do get a signed copy if
get
you
a signed
put it on my website.
All right. So
which
we're going to jump back.
Which is penofthebeloved.com real quick. I just wanted to put the
penofthebeloved.com.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to jump back to that first way, which is believing in yourself. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
And so what I basically talked about is that believing in yourself is what matters most when it comes to writing. You can have all the reasons in the world, but if you don't believe in yourself, or if you let doubt hinder you, then those reasons don't matter, because you don't believe in yourself to actually accomplish your book or finish your book. And so here's a question for you.
Okay.
How important do you think belief is for those who are authors?
I think belief is extremely important for those who are authors, because you can be very talented, you can have a degree in writing like I do and so many other people, but if you don't believe in your ability to create a story, if you don't believe in your ability to create something that's never been created before, and give yourself that like unction and desire to write, to sit down at a desk or grab a pen and grab a notebook, if you don't believe in yourself to do the simple act of writing, it can become very crippling and you can end up not doing anything at all.
Yep.
So,
that's the thing with doubt, that it comes in and it says, okay, you can't write it. Mm-hmm. These people have already told you that you're never going to publish your book. And so some people take that and then they say, okay, well then I'm not going to do anything at all. And it just stops the progress, the story, and the book just stops it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another question for you. What do you do when doubt, whether it's of your skills or the quality of your story, which is your book, tries to creep in on you? And you can pertain this to, this can be pertaining to poetry books as well.
Mm-hmm. So just a little background, I have two published poetry books, but I started writing stories well before I started writing poetry. And so for me, when doubt tries to creep in, or when it does creep in, I have to remind myself that stories is where I started with words, that stories became, before I was a poet, I was always a storyteller, and poetry is just another form of storytelling. And so I try to remind myself that I am a writer, no matter how I feel and no matter how many words I can push out in a day or in a month or in a year, that my ability to write is existent, and that I don't have to, just because I feel doubt doesn't mean that I'm less of a writer because I'm doubtful of my gift to write, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I also want to say that Antavia, you are a great writer, and she began writing stories and books, like she just said, even before I began writing books, and she's in the progress of writing a phenomenal book that I love, and I love all the characters already. The book has barely started, but her characters are amazing, and
Yeah.
it's good to have her remind herself that simply because she's not, she wasn't at the point that she wanted to be, that doesn't make her any less of a writer. We're all writers. We just have to push ourselves to actually do what we want to do to fulfill our passions.
Yeah.
And so the second way to instantly improve your writing was not to compare yourself to other authors. And I use the example of, if you find a Instagrammer who has published their book and their first time publisher, and they have all these readers and things like that, and then one day you say, well, if it worked for them, it can work for me. And I said that that's kind of a comparison trap, because what has worked for someone else can't work for you, because you are unique to yourself. Your book, your stories are unique to you. And so I have a question for you.
Okay.
How do you think comparison hinders a person's writing?
So there's this quote that says, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think comparison hinders all things creatively. And I think specifically with writing, when you are comparing your skill and your storytelling, your craft to someone else's, you begin to try to emulate what someone else already has, and you emulate a voice that is already in the realm of writing. And so comparison doesn't help a writer. And there's a difference between being inspired by someone else's work and then being inspired so much that you are trying to be like them because you feel that what they do is better than how you do it. And that's not the case. And like being in college, I had a lot of writing classes. And so being surrounded by a lot of very good writers and very good poets, it was easy to compare yourself. But then when you remember that you're all doing the same thing, you're all striving to study the craft of writing, and you're all striving to tell your story with your voice the way that you were designed to do it, it becomes much more enjoyable. And you can read someone else's story or someone else's novel or someone else's poem and then be inspired and not be like, man, I wish I wrote like that. Like, what do I look like trying to write like Maya Angelou when I'm not Maya Angelou, I'm Antavia. And so my voice is not her voice, and my story is not her story. And so just like my story is not your story, even though we're twins. And so it's comparison is not helpful in any way at all. And it definitely hinders individuality. It hinders creativity. It hinders getting a story that the world may need out into the world because you are fearful that what you have is not as good as what someone else has.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying earlier, is that it's great to aspire to be like a famous person that you just absolutely love, like Maya Angelou or J.R.R. Tolkien. It's great to have aspirations to be great like them, but like you said, your story is unique to you. Your story will matter to someone else. So if you try to copy someone else's words and try to match them to your own without being true to yourself, it won't really hit the same way.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, what's my next question? All right, no more questions for this second. But the third way to instantly improve your writing is knowing your purpose for writing. And I know for me, I believe that knowing your purpose for writing is the essence of being a writer. It's more important than knowing what your next scene is going to be, knowing who your characters are, because once you know your purpose for writing, whether that be to publish a book and provide for your family, whether it's to see your name on New York Times bestsellers list, which is not a bad thing to want, knowing your purpose for writing, knowing your purpose for being an author or publishing your next book is what is the foundation, and what all your characters, your scenes, your sentences, the emotions that your characters will have, all comes from knowing your purpose. And so my question for you is, why should a writer know their purpose for writing?
I think a writer should know their purpose in writing simply because if you don't know why you're writing, then I don't think from there you will even be able to create a story. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't know why you're telling the story, if you don't know why you are putting effort behind the work that you're creating, then it kind of, the process, I feel like, doesn't ever really truly begin, and then it doesn't become authentic. Because if you're trying to write just to create a New York Times bestseller, then it could end up being very superficial. It could end up being a very weak story, because most writers, they write because there's something in them that they want to say. They write because this character that they had in a dream won't leave them alone, and they have to put that onto paper, and they have to create this world. Like with J.R.R. Tolkien, he literally created something that did not exist in the world.
He created words that didn't exist.
Exactly. He created his own language and his own work. And the Lord of the Rings series, The Hobbit, is some of the greatest literature of the 20th century, because he didn't try to write to become famous. He wrote because that's what he wanted to do. And you take like poets like Edgar Allan Poe and like John Keats, which John Keats was a poet in the Romantic period, and he was not even considered famous. When he was alive, people did not like his work. They thought it sucked, honestly. And he kept writing because that was what he wanted to do, and not because he was striving for the affection of the people around him, although he wanted it. He didn't stop because people didn't like it. He kept doing it because he was a writer. And so knowing your purpose helps you write authentically. Knowing your purpose helps you to push past doubt. It helps you push past comparison, and it allows you to tell the story that needs to be told, if that makes sense.
That sums up everything, because like you said, if you don't know the why, then how can you keep going when the struggle happens? When it seems as if you have writer's block, if you know your why, it's gonna push you, and you can pull out your purpose, and you can say, hey, this is what my purpose says. This is why I'm gonna keep going forward.
Yeah.
All right. Another question. What pushes you to write? Even when it's hard, it seems you can't figure out what to write next.
Okay, so for me, writing has been, I would say, a bit difficult the last 2 years or so.
And this is writing your novel, right?
And this is writing my novel. This isn't poetry. Poetry comes pretty easily for the majority of like my life. Poetry is one of the easiest things that I can do. And this isn't saying that poetry, the craft of poetry, is easy, but pulling out a poem is much more simpler to me than a novel is much more like spiritual. It's even poetry is spiritual, but like I feel like writing a novel takes a lot out of me, and it takes a lot for me, because I always want it to be perfect, and I also think there is such power in storytelling. And so, can you repeat the question again?
I said, before I do that, I want to say that it's kind of like the exact opposite for me. Like, writing is just, it's fulfilling for me. It's a passion for me. It's just like second nature. And once I started, I'm just like, oh, I have this story, and I have this reason for writing this story, and it's going to be powerful in this way, and I'm so excited to write it, and I can write for days. But when it comes to poetry, I'm just like, hold on, let me get everything straight, let it be perfect. And I'm just like, because it comes from my heart, and my novels do too, but poetry just kind of hits in a different way.
But the question is how that is exactly the opposite of me.
Yes. The question is, what pushes you to write, even when it's hard or it seems you can't figure out what to write next?
I would say one of the things that pushes me to write is the fact that the stories that I am working on, I believe they need to be told. And I believe that, like, because I'm all about creativity, and I believe that creativity has the power to heal and to connect and to bring communities together and to bring healing even for a person like themselves. And I think that my stories have the capacity to do that. And that pushes me, the fact that one day that someone will read this and it will be exactly what they need to read in the moment.
Yeah.
And another thing that pushes me is like my belief in God and my obedience to God, that this ability to write is not just something I keep to myself because I'm good at it, but it's something that other people need to see. Like, people have told me how my poems have affected their lives and have been positive, like, reminders and positive affirmations of like love and of joy. And even the poems that I write about brokenness and sadness and heartbreak, people are like, wow, you've been able to express something that I didn't even know how to put words to. And I think that that pushes me to write when it's really hard. And I say lately it's definitely just been me and like asking God and like telling God, hey, I need help because this is hard and these stories are sometimes hard to write. So I need just the strength to do it. And I think my faith in God has been what has been propelling me to continue to write, even when I'm just like, man, this is hard. Like, that's it.
I don't know, for me, that's just the same thing as well, is knowing that I've been called to do this from God. By God, I've been called to do this. I've been called to write. And that is what pushes me to do this as well. And I like what you said about when you write something, whatever you write could be just what one person needs. And I once heard Ted Decker say that whenever he writes a book, he's writing to answer a question that he didn't even know he had. And for me, when I wrote the book, The Group, I was asking a question about vulnerability that I knew I had, but I didn't really know how to express it.
Yeah.
And so once I finished that book, it was more of like like God was saying, now here's the healing, here's the circle has, been closed. And so what I expressed about needing vulnerability or wanting to learn how to express vulnerability, I put that in my character, Miko, and now other people can also learn how to be vulnerable and learn that it's okay to allow help and to be a part of a family that's going to build you up.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So these are the 3 ways to instantly improve your writing: believing in yourself, not comparing yourself to other writers and authors, and knowing your purpose for writing. And I wanted to make this video because I know that belief above skill and above intellect are what a lot of authors are struggling with, because you can be as intellectual as you name it. You can be as smart and as correct in literature as anybody out there in the world, but if you don't believe that your talent, your skill, your gift is good enough to write that book, to finish that book, to publish that book, if you want to be an independent author and you don't believe that you have the skills to do that, or if you want to be traditional and don't have the belief that a literary agent or a publishing company can pick you up, then everything is mute. Everything is cut off, like what you said earlier. Everything stops at that moment. And so I wanted to make this video, go live on this, because authors, writers need to believe in themselves, that they're able to do what they're passionate about, what they've been called to do. And
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
And so I think another thing that I find to be true, especially when talking to people about creativity, which is what I do on my Instagram and YouTube a lot, is that we talk a lot about doubt, and we forget, at least I can say that I have forgotten sometimes, that when you think of like antonyms, like words that are the opposite of each other, it's like we rarely ever remember that the opposite of doubt is belief. Yes. And so that when you are feeling doubtful, because we make doubt to be this very big thing, when, and in reality it's not as large as we make it out to be.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be crippling, that there's no doubt about that. But the opposite of doubt is belief. And just as much as it takes to pull yourself out of doubt, it takes that much more to believe in yourself. It takes that much more to wake up in the morning and make decisions, as I once wrote in a poem, to make effort upon choices, to make efforts to do the hard things and to write the hard things and to grow in your ability as a writer as much as you're growing in your ability to be a capable person, a kind person, a generous person. Like, it takes belief to grow and to just be better, even as writers. So, yeah.
And I also want to say that your book doesn't have to be this deep story on forgiveness and retribution and family and vulnerability. If your story is a story of a woman who fights crime in a comical way, that story matters. That story can help someone who may be feeling down that day and they just want to laugh, and you help them laugh. That is good, no matter what genre your book is set in. Again, what someone else does not pertain to what you do. What you write, what you've been called to write, whether it's science fiction, fantasy, romance, or whatever the genre may be, it matters to you and it matters to someone else. Yeah. And I believe that once we as authors just believe in ourselves, that is how we can instantly improve our writing. Because as I said earlier, belief is the foundation for your characters, your scenes, your characters' emotions and personalities. Once you have that, your writing is so much better.
Yeah, I agree.
If you found this video helpful, guys, be sure to catch the replay on YouTube. And if you want to find out more about Antavia, aka Pen of the Beloved, you can follow her on Instagram at Pen of the Beloved. Follow her on her website at penofthebeloved.com. And follow her, subscribe, hit that notification, all that good stuff on YouTube at Pen of the Beloved. And and purchase her books on Amazon and also on her website at Pen of the Beloved. Also, guys, thank you for coming out. If you don't know me, I'm Octavia D. Mason, giving you practical writing tips, confidence to write your story, resources to build a strong novel. See you guys in the next one. Peace. Thank you, Antavia.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.